Sorry, technical difficulties. Now I got my mic on. Everything should be straight. Let me go back a second and talk about what I was just talking about again. Today I'm gonna break down. The picks of the week 6 games based on offensive line matchup, um, and rushing defense and rushing offense, and particularly the star rushers of the league. So I'm gonna go through. Let me touch on a couple things first. Based on what I think going forward. So the teams that have the worst offensive line woes are not teams that you should pick in week 6 to win the game, despite some of them being favorites in the game. So that gives you an opportunity. You have an opportunity to grab basically money that's being thrown at teams that the odds makers have been kind of favoriting since the beginning to win the season, and they're stubborn. They still think that their computer model analytics are going to get them these wins, and that their teams are going to go to the playoffs. So they keep thinking, hey, this is the week when this team's going to, but they're not. So let me go through a couple of those teams. New Orleans. New Orleans is a bad team. We found out today that Derek Carr is injured. He may end up playing in the game, but it doesn't matter. He's going to get sacked several times in the next game. So, and without saying too much, I want to get to the next point, which is New Orleans has no center to their offensive line. It's not a good bet to put your money on the Saints in this game, in the next game, in the game after that. They have 3 offensive linemen that are turnstiles right now. You have a 3rd string center. You have a 2nd string guard on the left and a 2nd string guard on the right. So let me look at the line in that game real quick. It's really bad. Yeah, I think they have the Saints as favorites in this game with the huge O-line issues that they have. It's not a good bet to take the Saints. So let's go back and talk about the rest of those teams in this O-line woe group. We have O-line woes with the New Orleans Saints missing 3 key offensive linemen. We have Cincinnati, who is missing Trent Brown and Marius. I'm missing the guy's last name. These are both starting offensive linemen. I think it's Amarius Smith, Amarius Mims. Right guard and right tackle and left tackle, both missing from the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals are not going to win against the Giants with that formula, in my opinion. They're going to have a hard time. We'll talk about how they can in a second. There is a possibility that these teams can change their game plan around what they have and the struggles that they're going through slightly, and they can win the game. But as constituted, Cincinnati is not going to go up to New York and win this game as they're predicted to at a record. I don't know why, but at a record of 1-4, they're still being predicted to win this game against New York at home. New York's been kind of hated on since the first week when they took that L to the Vikings, but the Vikings have proven that they are not the average team. So we can't blame a New York Giants team that put up a decent fight. They're the only team to actually lead the Vikings at all in the game. All of the other 4 opponents trailed the entire game. The Giants are the only team that was ahead of the Vikings at any point during the entire season. So the Giants, I think, take that game despite being underdogs. They went outright because Cincinnati has a left and right tackle missing. They're not protecting Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow can throw for 500 yards in that game. He can hit Jamar Chase for 4 touchdowns. It doesn't matter. The Giants can control the clock. The problem is that Burrow won't be on the field enough if the Giants watch film for him to make a difference. And when he is, the Giants got they got the rusher from Carolina now, and they got Thibodeau. They're going to tear up the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think it's even going to be close. So that's all because of the line. But I need to stay away from picks and just tell you why I think. So Trent Brown and Amarius Mims, I believe is his last name, 2 starting linemen. There's also a third lineman. I don't think he's a starter. He's also on the IR. Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have a culture issue. The quarterback is a guy who has been getting into trouble, Deshaun Watson. And so the Cleveland Browns have a team culture issue first, but they also have 2 poor quality quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, whose cap hit is ridiculous. It's in the hundreds of millions. The Cleveland Browns may not ever recover from getting Deshaun Watson. If they do, it's going to require that they move away from Deshaun Watson. And right now, the only option that they have besides Deshaun Watson is Jameis Winston, who is like Deshaun Watson light. Jameis Winston has a reputation for throwing tons of picks. So Cleveland is not looking good now or in the near future. And when they go into Philly, I would love to see them go into Philly and beat up on a Philly team who, what was Philly allowing? Philly is allowing 129 rushing yards per game. Philly is allowing they are the 21st ranked team in rushing yards allowed. And that means that Philly is letting teams run all over them. But the Browns don't have Chubb. The Browns are missing their key running back, so that matchup is not great for them. And so they have to stick somebody in there who's going to be able to dominate in the rushing game, and that means that your offensive line then has to block, and you also have to have good coaching. It's unfortunate, but it looks like Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the Browns, has taken a step back in his offensive play calling. Maybe he's resting on his laurels a little bit, but I worry about Kevin Stefanski's job after the Philadelphia Eagles game. I think if he doesn't win that game, which I don't think he will, I think that Stefanski's going to be on the hot seat here. The Cincinnati coach, when he goes into New York and loses, will be on the hot seat too. We might see a couple coaches get fired. Obviously, if the Browns come into Philly and beat the Eagles, which I really don't think that's going to happen, but if the Browns go into Philly and beat the Eagles, then Nick Sirianni's going to lose his job. I'll tell you that. But that's not a real hot take, because the Browns, that theoretical situation where the Browns go in there and win, that's a real long shot. So let me get into a little bit of the rushing matchups today. Talk about why I think rushing is important. O-line, we all know that if we know anything about the game, we know that the easiest way to control the clock and the game flow is with strong rushing and a good offensive line. That means that you can whittle away clock. And it looks like that's an important thing in the game now, because what teams are doing is they're getting ahead early, and then some of them are running the ball like is the traditional method, and some of them are trying to keep that other team on their heels by continuing to mount an attack. That's their approach. So it's kind of like game theory. You want to do the thing that the other team's not predicting for you to do. You also don't want to play to not lose. So there's a difference between playing to win and playing to not lose. If you are sure that your rushing game can gather the number of yards and you're going to pound the run, and you can commit to that without coming out of it, then a running game is a good way to slow that game down, get the game's pace on your side, keep the other offense off the field. But if you don't have a solid run game, or it's not effective, or your offensive line is struggling, then that won't happen. So you're going to struggle in any matchup. I think every team needs a rusher. Well, no, maybe not. It's kind of a passing league now, though. Estimated points average, or estimated points added, which is a statistical formula that's been come up with by some people, that number is starting to favor the run more. So you might see more teams going away from getting these hot young receivers to getting more of a rushing game, because you can whittle clock down, and having that rush is so important in order to balance your play and be able to create options, play action options, and deeper options down the field, which then requires a quarterback. So team balance is really important. Let me get into the breakdown of these numbers real quick. Thanks for staying with me, by the way. Like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny. I'm trying to give you valuable information. You don't even have to use your brain. All you have to do is listen, take notes, and make an informed decision when it comes to, obviously, a lot of people wager on these things these days. So you want to make an informed decision when you make a wager with your money. The other day, my dad told me that the American savings has reduced by 40% since the NFL partnered with gambling companies. So I'm not endorsing gambling, but if you're going to, I want to give you what I can as far as giving you the information that you should really go into this. Just listening to who thinks who's going to win without breaking down some numbers and looking at real substance is if you're just there to have fun, great. Throw your money on your team. But let me give you some info on the rushing matchups that are going to happen this week. That's going to give you an idea of who's going to be able to control the clock in each matchup. Matchups are the absolute key to understanding the differentials, point spreads and things like that. Their computers have a model set up that could be wrong about some things. And one of the best examples is the Cleveland situation. So here we go. Breaking down this week's matchups and the rushing matchups that go with it. I might have to stop a couple times just to gather numbers. But the first game, I have the Thursday night game tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 49ers, and they're traveling to Seattle to play the Seahawks. The Seahawks are 20th against the rush in the NFL. That is not great. That's bottom third, basically. And they are facing the number 2 rusher in the NFL. So they have Seattle, as I believe, as favorites in this game. If they don't, then I got to look and see who's favored real quick, because that is important. Seattle San Fran line. Yeah, and the 49ers are 2-3 against the spread. I'm not expecting them to dominate this game. They are, they're favored in this, and they should be, because it's not that the 49ers are what we thought they were, because they're not, but they're definitely good enough to beat the Seahawks this week. The Seahawks are allowing 128 rush yards per game. They're the 20th in rushing yards allowed in the NFL, and they're facing the number 2 rusher, which is Jordan Mason. So I believe Jordan Mason. So he was an undrafted free agent, but he is killing it with San Francisco. He's had great games, and he's the number 2 rusher in the league, behind your boy, big man. What's his name? Derrick Henry. Oh my gosh, what a beast, Derrick Henry. But we'll get to that in a second. I don't want to get it too much into the Jags and the Bears game, because that's kind of a trappy game. But the Jags are actually 8th against the rush, but that's not going to help them against the Bears, who do have some offensive line woes. But what's happening is that Caleb Williams is learning really quickly, and he's scrambling around and making plays with his feet, as they say. I know it's kind of a cliche. I do think that Jaden Daniels has what it takes to win this game. It's possible that the Jags will get a hold of Daniels, maybe, because they are good at defending the run, and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams will be a strong rusher against a pretty good rush defense, but we're looking overall holistically at the Jaguars. They're a bad team. And so the Bears, who have a passing attack, can avoid rushing against the Jags and probably still control the game with their defense and with Caleb throwing the ball downfield. You're going to see that a lot this weekend. There's going to be some mismatches where the rushing matchup doesn't exactly tell you who's going to take the game. The Jags' numbers are somewhat of lies. They've played a lot of kind of, I don't know. Well, no, they've had a decently competitive schedule, but it doesn't matter. They're underachieving. I think they were supposed to be a top team coming into the season. They are not. So, there's that. I think that that the Bears will get around that the 8th ranked rushing defense of the Jags and they'll find some way to win that game. But we're not talking about predictions now. I should talk about what the Jags need to beat the Bears, but we'll get into that stuff later. I don't think that's not a game that I want to focus on, because the games in London where you don't have your home crowd, it's a lot of other variables. Watching that Vikings game in London last week, it was really the crowd. I know they thought they were being loud, but they weren't. They are modest British people, and they're never going to cheer too much for either team, unless we're talking about soccer, in which case the fans are different. I think the fan base in England for football is more of a middle-aged, kind of a maybe nerdy. I hate to go into that route, but maybe you have like a little nerdier fan base in England for football. That's what it looks like, if I'm being honest. It kind of looks like Comic-Con when an NFL game goes to Europe, especially to England. It's like it pulls all of the like Comic-Con folks out of the woodwork. It's like they chose to watch football because it's a weird thing. Like over there, it's like roller derby. You know, what a weird sport. These guys wear tight pants. Back in the 90s, they would kill us about the tight pants and things like that. So now everybody wears tight pants. It doesn't even matter. All right, so I'm going to stay away from that game. We got the Browns. They're going to go to the Eagles. The Eagles are 21st against the rush, 129 yards allowed per game. But the Browns' team dynamic issues, personality issues, off the field issues with Deshaun Watson, poor quality at quarterback in general, no depth at quarterback because their backup is Jameis Winston. That's going to keep them from the game. But if they can get a rush going against the Eagles, that's their angle at winning this game. The Eagles have the same team they've had for a couple of years. They're practically the same bones for the team. The blueprint for beating the Eagles, watch the Washington Commanders Eagles game from 2022. The Commanders came out there, and I was shocked because Ron Rivera is not a great strategist when it comes to football. But that game, they dominated the Eagles. And how did they do it? They came out rushing immediately. It was the rush they used. Now, the Browns don't have that same line that Washington had in 2022. But the Browns, if they can grab a rusher, one of the backups, I don't know who the backup for Chubb is, who's running right now, but if they can get a rusher and just commit to it and really punish the Eagles in that rush and get a few first downs per cycle, keep that ball out of Hurts' hands, it is possible for the Browns to win it. I don't see it happening, but because I think the Browns are going to go to the air really quickly. They're going to start. They've got a quarterback who's erratic. They got a second string who's erratic. He's not going to be thinking on his feet. He's already got his money. It's a big problem there. They could win this game, but they won't. So we have the Browns who could go in there and establish the rush. It's anybody who plays the Eagles, I think, has a chance. I've been saying this for 2 years. Every team that plays the Eagles has a chance to win. It's all about the game planning. Hurts is seemingly a one-dimensional guy. When he rushes, they're in the pocket. He usually runs straight up the middle. They should trap him in that. Like, leave a gap there. There's ways to create stunts and stuff to open that gap in the middle and just lay him out, man. That's the way that you have to deal with Hurts. That's the way you have to keep, first of all, keep him off the field by rushing the ball and controlling the clock. And then create situations where Hurts is contained using a QB contain, which is two linebackers who come around other side of the quarterback. It's a little more risky because you have to dedicate two linebackers to it. If you've got some motion in your defense and the moving parts and kind of make them think you're going to run a contain, then it might keep Hurts in the middle, right? You want to keep Hurts in the pocket, and he'll stay there. So the way that the Browns could win this is by attacking with the rush against a really poor rush defense. The Eagles are a way better team on paper than they are in real life. They, I don't think, have a chance at any kind of a deep run in the playoffs. They are going to be up against far superior teams in the NFC. So the next game we've got is Cardinals going to the Packers. And there's really no way to see how this would work out for the Cardinals. I could be wrong about any of these things, but let me tell you about the rush, because that's what this video is about. This live is talking about. We're talking about rushing attack versus rushing defense. We got the Packers are 11th in the NFL and that's good. In rushing defense, allowing 114 yards per game. I know that doesn't seem like a lot between them and the 21st ranked team, which was the Eagles at 129 games, but that 15 yards is a huge difference. Um, the 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 Cardinals are going to come in there and they're going to throw the ball. Now, if they can run on the Packers, they may get an edge. But I think that the Packers defense, one of the reasons I think that the Packers will easily overcome them is because the Cardinals will not have an answer for the offensive weapons of the Green Bay Packers. The rushing attack is not really going to matter in this case. The Packers have home field advantage, and that is real when it comes to Green Bay. They will make you false start. They will scream and holler and yell whenever their team is on third down, and now you already got a team that's a little flustered early in the season like the Cardinals are. I think Green Bay is gonna dominate the Cardinals. They'll try to rush it. Green Bay will stop that. But that one, I don't think the rushing game is as much of a factor. I'm not going to go into Colts-Titans too much here. The Titans have a strong defense. Let me look at their rushing defense. Yeah, it's 15th, so right smack in the middle in rushing defense. Their passing defense is good. That is one thing about a couple of these teams. They may have a strong rushing defense, but their secondary is poor. And I'll get into that with the Commanders in a second, because the Commanders have a low rank against the run, and they're playing Derrick Henry, but I still think that they pull that one out, and I'll tell you why in a sec. The Bucs and the Saints. The Saints, I've told you, have those offensive line woes. They are not going to effectively run the ball with the center of their offensive line out. One of the offensive linemen that I listened to that does analysis of film said that the worst part of your offensive line to be down or to have injuries is the center. There's really no answer for that. There's no solution to having a weak center to your offensive line. You need the pocket for the quarterback to throw, for the quarterback to hand the ball off without getting a TFL, a tackle for loss. So having that pocket is important. The center of your offensive line being so important creates a situation for the Saints where, I mean, they can throw check downs and do draws and stuff, and that's what they've been trying to do. But now we're missing Derek Carr. We don't know who's coming in next week. It's a big problem for them. So I didn't even look at rushing statistics for the Saints. They won't rush the ball. Kamara he's a good rusher, actually. I bet I'd find that he's one of the top in the league, even despite the fact that his team has no line. The first play of the game the other night was a Kamara run for a first down. That's amazing. That speaks to how good a player Alvin Kamara is, that he can still, he's the sixth best rusher in the league, averaging 4.3 yards a carry. He has 388 total yards, and that's with a crap offensive line. But that doesn't mean that would be a factor in this Bucs-Saints game. The Bucs do have a bad defense, but their defense is good enough to break through a third-string offensive line. That's what we basically got in the center. We got 2 second strings and a third-string center. So the Bucs have a cheat code here, and that is just blitz, concentrate guys behind guys in the middle, create stunts, do stuff that second and third strings struggle with, make them block 2 guys. It's a lot of stuff they can do to throw the Saints off, and I think that they will. So the Commanders at the Ravens, which I think will be the best game of the week, is going to be a high-scoring game, I think. Both teams struggle a little bit on defense, though I think the Commanders have an edge there. The Ravens have a good rushing defense, but a very poor pass defense. And so that creates a poor matchup for them. This is the best part of the show. So if you're listening right now, thanks for coming. Subscribe, hit the like button here. I'm going to give you some key information on this Commanders-Ravens game. Hot take. The Ravens are the favorite in this game. I don't think the Ravens win this game. The Ravens have, and even looking at the matchups, it looks like they should win. But I think that what Derrick Henry, he's going to get some yards. He's going to run for some yards in this game. I don't think that that's going to work, because what's going to happen is the Washington offense is going to open by throwing huge passes to Terry and these other guys that they got, and they are going to get big yardage. Jaden Daniels has the highest completion percentage in the NFL, 77.1% of his passes. He's ranked up in the top 10, I believe, in passing yards, and he's a rookie. What they're not going to do is really try to run the ball. They have a similar offensive philosophy to Minnesota. They don't ever park the bus. They attempt to run the same offense from ahead, theoretically, that they run when they are behind. So I don't think the Commanders are going to try to settle down and run it, though Austin Eckler had a really excellent game against the last team they played. So the Commanders are a way better team than they look like on paper, even at 4-1. Some of my statistical analysis that I listen to has them as a Super Bowl team. The computer has them getting as a better playoff team than the Vikings even. So Derrick Henry will get his for sure. He's like the Justin Jefferson of running. He is, without question, Derrick Henry is the best running back in the NFL. Alvin Kamara, maybe a close second. There's no other running backs that I can think of. And I don't think there's any running back in history that's like Derrick Henry. He's a huge beast of a man. A few years ago, I think 2021 maybe, the Titans, who had Derrick Henry, played the Ravens, of which Derrick Henry is now a part. And the reason that I picked the Titans to win that game, and that was a hot pick because most people had the Ravens walking away with that game, was Derrick Henry, and that's exactly what happened. The Titans came out and they controlled the clock with Derrick Henry, and the Ravens didn't have an answer for that. They just did not have an answer for Derrick Henry, and that can always happen on any given Sunday. But I think in this matchup that the NFC powerhouse, because NFC teams are really pass-happy teams, it's just traditional, and it's appropriate. This year it is definitely like that. I think that Derrick Henry comes out and has a good game, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to run that score up. He's going to be hitting receivers left and right. It's going to be a crazy game. I do think the Commanders take that one. I'm not going to get into Steelers, Raiders. Steelers are all around a good defense, and they're playing an all around poor team in the Raiders, so I don't think that that's even they're coming off of 2 losses. I don't think they're going to take another L to a team like the Raiders. That's just unlikely. Chargers and the Broncos, another one I'm not going to focus on because I think the Broncos are easily the favorite in that game. It is possible that if the Chargers can establish the rush, let's look at, I'm pretty sure the Broncos have a high ranked, they're 10th ranked. They only allow 111 yards per game on average against a Chargers team that's just struggling, I think, on all sides. And the Broncos are going to run it as well. So, yeah, the Broncos are a powerful rushing defense. They're an underrated team in general. I believe their record is not, let me check with that. I think they're 2-3. If you're a Broncos fan, of one of the 2 people that's on right now is a Broncos fan, let me know. But I think the Broncos will walk away with that one easy, so I'm not going to focus on that. The Falcons and the Panthers is a big one. I don't think the Panthers win this game. But the Falcons are a terrible running defense. The Falcons are 29th in the league in rush defense. So the Falcons are opening up a matchup weakness to anyone who has a rush. And in this case, the Falcons are seeing the Panthers, who don't really have an answer. They got Andy Dalton right now, I think. I don't know who their running back is at the moment. I should probably know that information. I don't see the Falcons losing this game, but I think that if the Panthers can establish the rush against the Falcons, they are not the team that they look like. The Falcons are not a deep run playoff team. If they do make a deep run, I'll wear a brown bag on my head because I just do not see. It's not because Cousins is bad. It's just in general, the money that they put into Cousins came away from or was taken. We got to understand this is Moneyball nowadays, and I was talking about this yesterday. The money that you put into one player, you might as well drop all the rankings of other players on your team, because you're not going to be able to compete once you pay $150 million for a quarterback. They paid Kirk Cousins, I think, $70 million this year. That's their cap hit. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He can actually, he's important. He's going to win games, and he's demonstrated that at 4-1. But he can't play defense, and he also is jittery and doesn't run, and he's almost 40 years old. So the Falcons are on paper the team that wins this game against the sorry Panthers really easily. No offense, because I live in North Carolina and I love to see the Panthers do well, but they are not doing well, and the running the ball against the Falcons will work. So if the Panthers want to have a chance in this game, even if they're down 14-0, it's the first or the second quarter, they need to start rushing the ball and commit to their run and don't abandon it. What I see all over the league this year is abandoning the run. Coaches are like playing with the run just to set up the play action. But if they knew that the estimated points added was higher for the run, they might run more. A lot of the teams are going off statistics from a few months ago, and the statistics are always changing. And one of the things that changed about statistics recently was that estimated points added for runs eclipsed the pass. And so we have a situation where it may be advantageous for a team to develop their run game more than trying to look for deep threats and a quarterback that can throw 70 yards. Establish the run. Get you like a Case Keenum type. I saw Case Keenum on that advertisement the other day. I thought that was really funny. So it is possible for the Panthers to use the rushing game, to use the running game to gain a slight advantage in this game and maybe come away with it. I don't see that happening, but it could happen. And I already went over those games. The Lions and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 24th in stopping the rush. The Cowboys allow an average of 135 rush yards a game. And just to put that into comparison, just to put that into perspective, last year the Cowboys allowed 114 yards. That would be like in the top 10 this year. They are not the same team. This is how we can look. This is not the same team as last year. 135 yards on average per game versus 114 last year. That means that Dallas's rush defense is weaker, and that's insane considering the money they put into their team. Though a lot of people will say that Jerry Jones is cheap and that he's cutting corners with money, but I don't know, man. It's expensive to play football. So Cowboys are 24th at stopping the rush. The Lions have a good rushing attack. They're a very well balanced team. The Lions are going to come in there and control the clock. And that's why I made the pick I made, which is Lions easily when they go to Dallas. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely, because any given Sunday, anything can happen. And those intangibles that we talked about, like team mode, like team mood, team energy, some things that are not really quantifiable figures, those things are a factor. Some of those things I think are a factor in the negative way for the Cowboys, and they're positive for the Lions. The Lions are really high on themselves right now. They've done very well for a couple years. They've done well, better. The Lions are a team that's never won the Super Bowl. I don't think they've even ever been to the Super Bowl. So I always have a little soft spot for them, but I don't anymore because they're a good team and they're scary. So they're going to go into Dallas and against a 24th ranked rushing defense. And that's going to be an issue matchup-wise for the Cowboys, because once they establish that run, then Jared Goff is going to go through the air on them. And he does have some protection with his line. So Jared Goff will get after the Cowboys secondary. It's going to be an ugly day. Jones is going to come down to the field. All of these things I see happening. I've seen Jerry Jones since I was a little guy. He's been the owner of the Cowboys since I can remember. And I know when it feels like Jones is going to pop up on the field, heads are going to roll. Heads are going to roll on that team most likely when they lose to the Lions, when they can't stop the rush, because the Lions will control the clock. So we're talking about controlling the clock. It's like take a charge day in the NBA. Learn how to control the clock with the rush. If the team can control that clock with the rush, they're going to have an advantage. The Bengals and the Giants. So the Giants have the 12th ranked rushing defense against a Bengals team that has no real rushing attack. They have I want to say, what do they have, Mixon? Who do they have there as their starting running back? The Bengals are really struggling. As I mentioned, they have some offensive line injuries. Trent Brown, Amarius Mims, those are their tackles. So on the exterior of their offensive line, they struggle. I'm watching the film. The Bengals are, Joe Burrow is under siege every play. Players are almost getting home on a playly basis. So it's happening every play almost. It's only Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's as we said in backyard football back in the day, it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase versus all y'all. That's what it is. It's not a complete Bengals team, because there is no complete Bengals team. I watched some film. The Bengals are dropping fumbles on, who is that? Who is that dropped that fumble right on the goal line? I mean, just the worst place to fumble, and it happens. But we've got a Bengals team going against a Giants team that's way underestimated. The Giants have a chance in their division. I don't think a big chance, but the Giants 12th in stopping the rush, and the Bengals have no offensive line. So if the Bengals try to establish a rush, which I doubt, I think that this one's going to be a shootout with Joe Burrow under duress, the entire game, throwing through the air, and the Bengals could win. They're favored to win the game. I don't think they will, though. I think the Giants are going to get after with what's his name, Brian Burns and Thibodeau. They're going to get after Joe Burrow. They're going to maybe strip sacks, possibly interceptions. It's going to be turnovers, and there will be no rush established. And then we have the Bills versus the Jets. The Bills are the best team in the NFL, right? Wrong. The Bills are a very poor rushing defense against a Jets team that is absolutely a mess right now. So the Jets fired their coach. Now Aaron Rodgers, who's the de facto coach already, Aaron Rodgers is going to take a lot of those play calling responsibilities. I'm sure this is all playing into his hand right now because he wanted control of this team. It's kind of like Aaron Rodgers' Jets team. Aaron Rodgers is not going to run that ball hardly ever, unless he sees something in the defense to indicate that he should. And he really should in this scenario, because the Bills are ranked 26th against the rush, allowing that's at the very bottom of the league, allowing 144 rush yards a game. They had a horrible game against Derrick Henry, crushed them. So I think that the Jets should run the ball. Aaron Rodgers should settle down, run the ball more, throw the ball a little bit less. If you watch my video from yesterday, I showed you how Aaron Rodgers is kind of making his passing attack one-dimensional, and the defenders now are smart players, and they can see what Rodgers is doing at the line. He doesn't like motion, so he's not going to see when there's a man defense unless he's savvy enough to do that. The Vikings were just having a field day with Rodgers. I don't know if that was his lowest passer rating in his career, but it was down there in the 50s. It was a horrible performance for Aaron Rodgers. 3 interceptions against the Vikings. He could throw interceptions against the Bills too, but their defense is not what it once was. The Bills are going to come in there, I think, and win the game. But the Jets could win this game if they settle down, forget all the news, forget the press, get your culture together, and run the ball. Look at the stats, look at the film, and realize that against the Bills, because this was how the Ravens beat the Bills, man. They established the rush. That run with Derrick Henry was from like the 3-yard line, and he was absolutely outrunning. He's a 30-something-year-old, 6'5", 300-pound guy, outrunning young cornerbacks and safeties. And so that made me worry badly about the state of the Bills' rushing defense. What is the state of your rushing defense to allow that old man to just run you over from the 3-yard line? You had an advantage of field position and allowed it to go away. So that was concerning to me. And so I think with the Bills, this matchup favors the Jets here. 26th ranked rushing defense in the NFL. The Jets have a possibility. They have runners. I'm forgetting the names. We got rookie guys that are really talented. I think this is important for me to look up. because they were running on the Vikings last week. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. Breece Hall these guys lit it up in college. Both of them are good running backs. I think what you got is a situation where Aaron Rodgers needs to take a week because he's hurt anyways, and do some running, man. Do a heavy run offense since he's the coach now. He can call these plays at the line. I think everybody would be pleasantly surprised to see Aaron Rodgers audible to a running play at the line and allow Braylon Allen and Breece Hall to really just to get their sea legs, man. Because once they get some confidence, you're going to have that team that you're talking about all the time. We have with the players we have and so forth. I know he wants Devontae Adams, and that'll probably happen in short order. But for now, I think he needs to establish the run against the 26th ranked rush defense in the Bills, not the team that they once were. They are not. Let me look at that again and show you what the Bills were allowing last year. So I'm trying to find my stat page here. So they're 26th ranked this year, and I want to see what they were last year so we can see how they've declined and why it's important for you to look at this game in context. The Bills are 26th this year at 144 yards allowed per game. And in the last 3 games, they've allowed an average of 152. So they've done worse than that in the last few games. We have last year 112 yards per game averaged against them. That would put them in the top 5 or 10 this year. So that we got to look at those numbers and crunch that and see that means that the Bills have declined in their ability to stop the rush. They're not the team they were. This is the problem with the models and the problem with the predictions before the season. This season is bananas. That's why I'm sitting here right now. I'm sitting here because I'm compelled, and it's profound what I'm seeing in the trends in the NFL and the numbers. I'm a fan. I'm just a fan first. And that's what this is. I don't bet on the games. This is just me looking at how crazy the game is, and there's sense to be made of it. All you have to do is look inside those numbers. So look at the Bills decline 30 yards. They're allowing 30 to 40 more rush yards per game this year. That's significant. And then the Ravens, at the top of the pack. The Ravens are real good, except that passing defense is poor. So that is the last game, though. The Bengals and Giants, I broke that down. The Bills and Jets, I broke that down. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is Aaron Rodgers. And what I think about Aaron Rodgers and the situation with the Jets. I think that Aaron Rodgers, maybe, I don't know if it's personal to him, if it's just business, because Aaron Rodgers did a similar thing with Flynn in Green Bay, and that was why they got rid of him and took that cap hit, because Rodgers, he meddles. His thing should be to play quarterback, right? But if you're 41 and you want to be the coach because you know the game, then switch over to coaching and be a successful coach. You're obviously a smart player. Show the younger quarterbacks how to play. Here's some insight I can offer you as an older guy who's been watching Aaron Rodgers since he was standing on the sideline for 4 years. When Aaron Rodgers was first made a quarterback of Green Bay, and he sat on the bench behind Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, they asked the coaching staff, I think it was Mike, what is that guy's name? Mike, either way, redheaded guy, one of those kind of old ball coach looking guys. The old coach of the Green Bay Packers asked Brett Favre to mentor Aaron Rodgers and help him learn the game. And Rodgers told the coaches not Rodgers, Favre told the coaches very clearly, and this is why I think all of the stuff that they talk about now is funny about how he's friends with Favre or whatever. Favre was like, I don't have time to show him how to play the game. Why would I train my replacement? I'm paraphrasing, but this is what Favre told the coaches and the staff. I'm not a coach. I'm not here to train him, and I'm not going to train my replacement. I don't have time to do that. So he didn't spend a lot of time on the sideline coaching Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers watched Brett Favre. And not only did he watch how Brett Favre played, he picked up things about how Brett played, like being able to look away from his receiver and throw to a different. That was stuff that Brett Favre did, no other quarterbacks did. Rodgers watched that. But the other thing Rodgers watched was how Brett Favre manipulated coaching staffs. So here's the hot take for you. Aaron Rodgers learned how to be a hard ass from Brett Favre. And now he knows after 20 years in the NFL, this is not child's play and no one's here to be my friend. And the day I can't play anymore, they'll get rid of me. So what do I have to do? I have to use my ability to manipulate people to create a scenario where I have creative, basically what I would call in the NFL, creative control of my team, which is not something a player should have. A coach should be the one who has creative control over the team. He also has control over the personnel of the team. So he chooses who plays on the team and so forth. And now it looks like Aaron Rodgers has a say in who coaches the team. But who's really coaching the team, folks, is the defensive coordinator who's running the defense and Aaron Rodgers who's running the offense. And that's just where we are right now. Aaron Rodgers is a coach on the field. And that is a problem because you can't wear that many hats. And I don't think that's going to create a successful scenario for the Jets. Nor do I think that the Jets organization is trying to win. The owners firing Robert Saleh was a really bizarre move. And I heard that it happened because the owners of the Jets had friends at the London game and they were humiliated by the performance there. That was going to happen. The Jets were playing a superior team. So if the whole thing was like, if you don't come in here and impress my friends, you lose your job. Now you're going to lose. You've thrown the rest of your season out the window. It shows how much money that these owners have. They're willing to actually throw out the rest of their season to fire a guy over their personal pride. And I think that's a long-term recipe for failure. And I don't think that the Jets are going to recover from this firing. I don't think, though I think the Jets may be a better team than the Bills, who they're playing this week. I don't think they're going to beat them. That's what I mean by the dynamic of a team being so important to whether they succeed or not. Rodgers has kind of a toxic environment wherever he goes, and I like Rodgers. Like, I want to like him, and I just don't understand why he creates this toxic environment, but I gotta believe that it's for some sort of strategic end. All that ayahuasca that he's doing is creating these little neurons in his brain. He's coming up with these solutions to things, and I think it involves a little bit of manipulation. I definitely believe in the take that someone said the other day where they said he wants to stick it to some people. I think that's probably true. Rodgers may be a little vindictive. He's got one Super Bowl, and he's the most talented quarterback in the history of the NFL, in my opinion. And not just my opinion, but in the opinion of many people. I hate watching Rodgers play against my team. I loved watching Rodgers play against my team last week because I know it's a mess. And Rodgers is so put together and everything, you know? And then we see this 2 weeks in a row, he's a mess. So I think at the third week, he's going to be a mess. And I'm going to wrap it up by saying that. So look at those matchups. I'm going to go back through my matchups real quick in my last couple minutes here. Give you my rationale again. I'm sticking by my picks for the most part. I do think there's some caveats in there with the picks. So if you're picking, and this is the early picks, though the first game is tomorrow night, so they're not that early anymore. Wednesday picks, I got the 49ers going to Seattle and winning that game, covering that 2.5 or 3 point spread. I've got the Bears winning against the Jags, though that's not one I would hang my hat on. I don't know what's going to happen in that game. The Jaguars are somewhat unpredictable. The Bears are also. If they're unpredictable, it's that they're going to, they have a rookie quarterback and some woes with the offensive line that go back a year. And that's the reason Justin Fields is not there anymore, though he's a very talented young guy. So I think that the Bears probably win that game against the Jags in all likelihood. So we got the 49ers going to Seattle and winning as road favorites, but covering the spread. Then the Bears winning. They're technically the home team, but I don't buy that crap. When you're in London, there's no home team. The Browns could establish the run against the Eagles and potentially win the game, but their culture is so bad that the Browns, I think, lose the game to the Eagles. They go into Philly and drop again. Then Kevin Stefanski's going to be on the hot seat for losing his job as the coach of the Browns. That's what's going to happen there. So then we got the Seahawks losing, or the 49ers coming into Seattle and winning, the Bears beating the Jags, and the Eagles beating the Browns at home. I think the spread, the Eagles will, that's a pretty big spread there. I think the Eagles will cover that big spread. Generally, I don't give that advice, but because they say anything bigger than a 10-point spread is like they're begging for people to pick it up. I think the spread in that game is 8 points. Important. And this is important for your fantasy team. Looking at the rushing offense and rushing defense can give you an important metric about how a team's going to be on the field. So if you look at rushing defense and then the team's O-line, you can kind of have an idea of what players you want to put in your lineup. So not only in just game betting and spread and stuff, if you're running a daily fantasy or if you have several daily fantasy teams in a fantasy league, knowing what the matchups are the next week is going to be key to you making the right decisions for your team. The spread in the Browns-Eagles game is 8.5 points. That's a massive spread, but I do think that the Eagles are going to cover that. That's a good Vegas spread. Like, that's a fair spread because the Eagles are not a great team, but they're a good and solid enough team to beat an absolutely abysmal Browns team, maybe the worst Browns team I've ever seen, and there's been some really bad ones. So I got going back, I got the 49ers knocking off the Seahawks. The Seahawks are at home, the Bears winning in London, the Eagles winning at home. The Packers are going to handle the Cards at home. That could be, I don't think that's going to be it could be a shootout, I bet, a little bit. We got some powerful offenses at work. Kyler might get loose a little bit. But the Packers' defense is solid. I think that they've got a deep back on the Packers that's come up with an interception in every single of the first 5 games. If he continues that streak and pulls an interception against Kyler Murray, that could be a big factor. The Packers are a serious football team. Everybody in the NFC North is nobody to play around with. And that's just not because I'm a Vikings fan. That's just how it is this year. Everybody in the North has a winning record. Look at the other divisions in football are not the same. The Texans and the Pats, I didn't really go over that. I think that's a self-explanatory game. The Texans are a dominant team. The Pats are a team in serious rebuild mode. They've got that Drake May, the quarterback, young quarterback. Maybe it's time to play him. I don't know if he's hurt or what it is, but I think even with Drake May, the Texans win that game easy. The Colts and the Titans, I think the Titans win that one at home. That's a divisional game. It could be tricky. You might want to look at the rushing matchup. I didn't look at that in this live. The Bucs at the Saints. I think the Bucs are going to go in New Orleans and win that game on the road, and I think I'm going against the Vegas line on that, but I have no problem doing that. The Saints can't do anything with the center of their offensive line the way it is. So that's a real important metric for you to know if you're going to play a player like Kamara or if you have a player on the Bucs. It's going to be a Bucs day. So you're going to have a Tampa Bay. I foresee the Bucs having a huge game. especially on defense where they're going to get after whomever is playing the quarterback for the Saints, and it's not going to be anybody good. So we got all those teams I just mentioned. And then we got I think the Commanders go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens. I don't have any problem saying that, and the Ravens are a good, solid team, top rushing defense in the NFL. But the Commanders don't rely on that. They're still going to establish the rush. That's what's good about the Commanders. They're going to go in there, and they're going to check that Ravens rush defense by sending Eckler at them. And if they stop it, watch Jaden Daniels drop back, and he's going to throw bombs, man. And he's been doing it for the first 5 games, so don't expect it to change. Think about this. 8 out of 10 passes that Jaden Daniels throws are caught. 8 out of 10 passes that Jaden Daniels throws are caught, and they're not a lot of checkdowns. Jaden Daniels is throwing the ball down the field, and 8 of 10, 4 of 5 are being caught, and that's for big gains. So I worry about the Ravens in that matchup, and I have no problem saying I think the Commanders take that one. So I'll go through all my picks and make sure that you hear that again. But we got the 49ers taking the Seahawks, taking them out at home, smashing them. The Bears taking out the Jags in England. The Browns losing badly to the Eagles. They're going to Philly to lose to the Eagles. The Packers are going to handle the Cards at home. I don't have a problem saying that. The Texans in Foxborough, the Texans will, I presumably, win that game. The Colts and the Titans, that's going to be a tighter one. The Titans will, I think, win that at home. It could go either way, though, because it's divisional. Another divisional one, the Bucs at the Saints. I think the Saints get crushed at home there. It's going to be embarrassing for them. They've got a lot of injury woes. The Commies at the Ravens. I think the Commanders are going to go in and take that. I've got a lot of road teams, I think, that are going to take it this week. The Steelers are going to go to the Vegas Raiders, I think, and win that game heartily. So we have another road team winning there. The Chargers go to the Broncos and don't have the success, in my opinion. Broncos are not going to take Chargers are going to drop their 3rd game in a row to the Broncos. They can't handle that high altitude and strong defense of the Broncos. I think they got more turnovers than any other team right now. I got to check that, make sure you can fact check me on that. If the Falcons will win this game most likely in Carolina, but if the Panthers can establish a rush and get Kirk Cousins off of his, get home on Kirk Cousins, it's everything, because Kirk Cousins is a very streaky quarterback who gets happy feet and a clenched jaw when he's under pressure. So if the Panthers can get after him and get home, the Falcons might not win that game, but as constituted, I see the Falcons going into Carolina and trying to pass it, not establishing. Well, the Falcons are going to Carolina. They're gonna pass it on the Panthers. The Panthers will not probably try to establish the run. They're going to put Andy Dalton out there. Dalton is a thrower. He's the Red Rocket. He's going to throw the ball down the field, and that's not really what they need to do to beat the Falcons. They need to establish the rush. They won't do that. The Falcons will go to Carolina and win that game. Lions at Cowboys. The Lions are road favorites, I believe, in this, and they should be. They're going to go against the 24th ranked rushing defense. The Cowboys have some offensive line issues, though. They have a better pocket for Dak than what people give them credit for. So the Lions are going to run all over the Dallas Cowboys, control the clock. And so that's what we're talking about today, is rushing. We got the Bengals going to the Giants. I think the Bengals are going to lose that game. The Giants are going to take that one at home, though the Giants are home dogs, I think. So the Giants are not expected to win that game for some reason. Despite the many injuries and many woes of the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that Vegas is wrong on that one, that the Bengals will go to New York and lose to the Giants. And then I think that the Jets will get beat at home against the Bills on Monday night. And it's going to be the Bills are allowing 144 yards per game against the rush, but the Jets aren't going to rush the ball, and that's the problem. We got Aaron Rodgers in control and in the helm. And so what we talked about today was matchups, some offensive line injury issues. This is Wednesday, so those are early picks, but tomorrow is the Thursday night game. So I'm giving you my best take, and here's a guy, you're looking at a guy who spent a lot of time poring over these matchups, looking at the team culture, you got to look holistically at these whole things. Statistics are great, but the numbers are also based on what sample group we have now. We only have 5 games. So it's really important to look at that in context, and then look at team culture, look at matchups. And today we looked at the rushing matchups in the NFL and how those might affect the game. I don't think actually that those rushing matchups are as much of a factor this week as they may be in other weeks. But it's always a big deal to be able to control the clock and the game flow. That's what we're all about here. Check out my other videos, subscribe to the channel, like this video. I got 2 likes on this video. If you like this kind of content, throw that thumbs up and give me a like. That's all I need. But I can't do this forever. I'm going to give you the picks as long as I feel like it's worth my while. I'm not asking for money, though. You can drop something in my Cash App. I don't know if I threw the link on this one, but it's $ Calvin Seaton. Drop some money in the Cash App. But otherwise, just drop a like. That doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe to the channel. That doesn't cost you anything. And take notes, because I think, hold me accountable. We'll talk about it. Put a comment down. I don't mind being accountable for these picks. That's fine for me. But the problem is when I have no interaction. So what I need you to throw me a like, subscribe to the channel, throw a comment on there. I'm always on all these other sports pages. If you're a regular on all the sports podcasts and stuff, you'll see I'm in the comments all the time. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I love you all. I appreciate you so much for coming. You could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to come here and see me, and I'm truly appreciative of that. Everybody have a great day. Hug the people that you love. Be appreciative of this wonderful life that we've been given and the chance that we've been given on this planet to experience joy. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.